and welcome to What's Your Story. I'm Missy Day.
And I am Michelle Hausbeck.
And with us today is a gold medal winner, Connor Fields. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great for you to be here.
We have to use that machine at least once.
So Connor is actually going to be speaking at What's Your Story, and we're very excited to have him as one of our keynotes. And so let me just ask you, at this point in time, are you getting tired of sharing your story or no?
No, not at all. Because I know the impact that it's had on other people. And, sure, maybe I get tired of telling the same story over and over again personally, but what I can give to others through sharing it makes it okay.
So what's the best part? If you only could do just take a sentence out of your story, what's the most impactful thing you say?
Depends on what you're looking for. Do you want good and positive, or do you want emotional? Do you want heartbreaking? What do you want? Because this is the whole thing. I've experienced it all.
All of it in one sentence.
Probably the coolest story, or my favorite. It's hard to put this into one sentence, but this is probably the most emotional, coolest story that I have. I'm going to have to give you some backstory, so it's going to go a bit long. When I was 15, I watched the Olympics on TV. And I'd already been racing, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I wrote on my wall, my dry wall, with a Sharpie that one day I will win the Olympics. And then I got grounded, right? Because you're not supposed to write on your wall with a Sharpie. And my parents let me keep it. And every single day I saw that. And 8 years later, when I won the Olympics, when I saw my dad, and somebody captured this on video, when I saw my dad, he comes up to me and he said, "You did it, you wrote it on the wall, and you made it come true."
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that. What was their reaction? So I'm going to go a little deeper here. So you write it on the wall, and obviously they see it, and you said you got grounded. So what was that conversation like with them?
Well, that was 15 years ago. But my parents were always very good at just allowing me the ability to reach for the stars and go for my dreams. And they supported me as best as they could, but they didn't force me to do anything, which I think really paid dividends in the long run. My dad wasn't forcing me to work out or forcing me to train. I wanted to, so he provided me the opportunity to go by taking me. So when I did that, my parents were like, "We love that you have a goal, but you understand why we're mad at you, right? You understand that you could have written this on a piece of paper and put it on the wall, not literally on the wall, right?" So that was what they were saying. But I think it's cool that they let me keep it, right? And
so you cut it out of the drywall? And
no, it was on the wall up until my parents moved.
Yeah.
In 2018, 2 years after I won.
They let you leave it up there, right?
It was up there the whole time. Even after I'd moved out, they left it on the wall. But then when they moved out and they sold the house, they cut out that piece of drywall. It's about that big. And they gave it to me as a gift. And I have it now sitting right next to where the medal sits.
Wow.
That's awesome. I think you should bring that to What's Your Story.
Okay.
I want to see it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I always bring the medal, but I don't always bring the wall.
Bring the
but
wall.
I can
Bring
bring the wall. Yeah.
the wall.
Cool.
I had a question. Oh my gosh, and it just went away from me. Oh, what made you want to even be an Olympian? Where did it come from? Besides just watching guys and being like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to do that."
I was always hyper competitive ever since I was born, probably, I guess. But, since this is the theme of the whole thing is a story, here's another story for you. When I was about 10 years old, I played a bunch of different sports. Right? My parents introduced me to everything: soccer, basketball, flag football, baseball, all that stuff. And I had started riding BMX when I was 8 and started racing competitively when I was 8. And at the age of 10, I was racing kind of in regionally, West Coast, California, Colorado, Arizona areas. And I was also still playing other sports. So at this point in time, I was in rec league basketball. And at that age, everybody plays the same amount of minutes. Everybody plays, it's supposed to be fair, right? We keep score, but it's about learning, it's about having fun. But in my mind, no, it's about winning, right? So my dad loves this story. He loves to tell the story. But when I was 10, there's about 2 minutes left in the game, and the coach tries to take me out of the game and says, "Hey, it's so-and-so's turn." And I remember looking at him and saying, "No, I'm better than them." And we were losing by a couple points, and I just wanted to win. I was like, "No, I'm better than them." And coach was like, "Oh, you've had your turn. You know, it's little Johnny's turn or whatever." And I refused to leave the court, and I sat down on center court, and I threw a whole fit.
I love it.
And my dad had to carry me off the court, kicking and screaming. And all it was that I wanted to win. It wasn't anything else other than that I was just competitive. And so at that point in time, he's like, you know what? Maybe an individual sport is for you. You get through the ranks, right? You get through high school, you get to college or even pro. Everybody tries as hard as they can, right? But at that age, at 10, some of the kids are just there because mom and dad make them go.
Right.
But they're just there. They don't even know the rules. They're just having fun. I just wanted to win. And so that was when I started to get more serious with BMX racing. And I stopped playing other sports and I took it seriously. But at that time, BMX was not in the Olympics. So there was not really that as a goal, or not, there wasn't that as a goal. There wasn't really a long-term plan. I just enjoyed it. And I had fun doing it. And my parents thought that eventually one day I would transition to something else, but I never did. And then in 2005, I was 12, the International Olympic Committee announced that BMX racing was going to be added to the Olympics. And that BMX racing was the first action sport that was added into the Summer Games. So my generation is less interested in the traditional sports, the diving, the swimming, track and field. We like action sports, like the X Games, things like that. So BMX racing was like the test pilot for the Olympics for action sports. But when you're 12, you don't really know what that means. You know, I had no idea what the Olympics was. But then when I was 15, that was the first time that BMX was actually on TV at the Olympics, the whole thing. And that was when I watched it. And I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I want to do that. And that was when I wrote that on the wall and when I really started to get serious with the way I approached it.
Love that. Did you get to play the last 2 minutes in that game?
I don't think so. I was carried off the court, kicking and screaming. Yeah. But, you know, it all worked out, right?
Yeah, it did. Did you ever do anything with the X Games, or have you since then?
BMX racing is not a sport in the X Games, so freestyle is.
Okay.
BMX racing was in the X Games up until 2005 when they announced that it was going to be put into the Olympics. And then the X Games dropped it because they were trying not to have any confusion.
Got it.
With the Olympics.
Okay.
So I never did the X Games. I enjoy it. Those athletes are incredible, but
Yeah.
I've never competed in it.
All right.
So what I've always been curious about, so, you know, you watch the Olympics and the gold medal person's in the middles on the top box, you know, and everything. So what goes through your mind when that's happening?
A lot. But really what it is like you dream of that moment for a decade. Every day when you're in the dog days of training, every day when your muscles hurt, every day when you wake up in the morning and you're tired, you don't want to go. And if you think about the amount of time and the level of commitment that it takes to do something like that, when you finally get it, it's a bit surreal because it's like, is this actually happening or is this just another vision in my head that I've been imagining for my whole life? And then it happens and you're trying to savor and enjoy every moment, but it's a brief 5-minute window, right? Where they're raising the flags, they're playing the anthem, they're announcing your name. It's a 5-minute window that you just worked a decade to get. So you're trying to take it all in with all the, you know, the juices flowing in your body and everything going on. Like, keep in mind, you're exhausted because you just finished competing, right? You can barely stand up. It's this emotional dump, right? Like you're just letting everything out. But for me, what really came to me, what I was really stricken by was all the hours of work that were put in for, at that point in time, it would have been 19 years to get to that point. All the days, just the monotony of it. The random Tuesday in November when my friends called me in high school and they were all going to the basketball game and I couldn't go because I was working out. Or, you know, the broken bones and the surgeries, or the commitment that my parents made driving overnight after they got off work to take me to the event so I could get there in the morning. The things like that it took to get to that final destination, that's what was really stricken on me. But yeah, it was the coolest moment ever. I don't know how you top that.
So do you ever just like watch it because you want to just see the whole thing again?
Unfortunately, there's no video of it. And NBC holds their video back. Yeah, I don't have the video. There is video of it, but I don't have it. So NBC has, and they're very protective of their rights. And so I don't have any video of the medal ceremony. I have like the YouTube clip where there's a 5-second clip, but I don't have the whole thing.
Oh, that sucks.
They can't just even put like a big old watermark, make it blurry, so
I'm
you
sure-
get like an essence
Maybe
of it.
if I asked, I could do that. I'm sure other
ask.
Olympic athletes have asked for that video. But I don't have it, but maybe I will. Maybe
I think you should.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You need that. I think you.
maybe they'd say yes, maybe they wouldn't. Who knows?
Yeah, just ask.
Just ask.
Yeah, I guess worst they can say is no, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So let's talk about your wrist situation.
That was my next question.
That one?
Yeah, that one. So
Gotta look
you
at those
kept
scars.
writing, right? You finished with a broken wrist.
Kinda. So on April 1st in 2016, and I will never forget it because it was April Fool's Day. So when I was calling people to tell them, they thought I was playing a bad joke.
Oh.
Like, guys, I wouldn't joke about this. I was in England. We were preparing for a World Cup event, which was an Olympic qualifier. Shattered my wrist. I had to fly back to the States. Went to Vail, Colorado for surgery. And the wrist was completely shattered. Basically, the bone died. There was no blood flowing into the bone at all. So normally the response would have been to fuse your wrist. And basically, just it was going to be in this position forever. It was not going to move anymore. But because of me being an athlete, and I was also paired with the best hand surgeon in the world, they did a really complex surgery that involved the bone graft. So they took a piece of bone. That's what the scar up here is. They took a piece of bone from here, and then they screwed it in to the bone, and basically used the live bone to bring the dead bone back to life.
Yeah.
And then filled that hole with a piece of cadaver bone. And that was on April 8th. And then the team was set to be named in June for the Olympics. So 2 days before the team was named, I got a call and was basically told, you got to show us that you can ride. And I called the doctor and I explained, and he said, well, the wrist is healing, but it's still broken, and legally I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you you're okay to ride. This decision's up to you. Wow. Like holding on isn't going to do anything, but if you land on it, like, it's toast. And so, I went for it. And he finally legally cleared me a month after the Olympics. He said, your wrist is healed. So at that point, I had to go back and have another surgery to finish fixing it.
So do you still have a screw in there?
4.
Is there 4 screws?
Yep.
So do you fill those in there?
No, I mean, the wrist actually, it had an incredible recovery. I've got full movement back. The only thing I can't do is go forward.
Oh.
However, this is my left. I shoot a basketball with my right hand. That's the only time that you need that motion. I have not found anything in this life that with my non-dominant hand, I need to go farther forward. So there's nothing I'm limited. Nothing. The only other thing I can't do is push-ups. Because when I do that, I can feel the screw, like something in there doesn't feel right.
Right.
So I have to use something like, I put a dumbbell on the ground or something for a push-up. But other than that, it's 100% fine.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm now friends with the hand surgeon. I've sent, and this is not an exaggeration, probably 8 to 10 people to him. I call him. This is a good story. So a friend of mine races motocross, and we were at a race in Phoenix maybe 2 months ago, and he had a really bad injury, broke his arm real bad and his wrist. So I called Doc, and I said, hey, Doc, what's up? And he said, oh, I'm in the middle of surgery. I have you on speakerphone. What's up?
I love it.
So he's like in the middle of this person getting surgery. I hope they never find that out, that he's answering calls right on speakerphone. Right. And he's like, hey, let me call you after. I just want to make sure you're all good. But yeah, send him over. I'll fix him up. But yeah, it was just kind of a crazy story, but I like that one.
Is the doctor here?
Vail, Colorado.
Of course. Oh.
Darn it. I need a hand doctor.
I know the best guy in the world if you want
Can we call him right now and see if he's in surgery?
He might answer.
So I've always wondered this with particularly athletes. So you have an injury or something going on in your body, but you're still going to go compete, right? Basketball comes to mind. You heard a ton of different stories. How do you, what goes through your head? I mean, do you obviously have to put it out of your head, I would think, that about your wrist, because if you focus on your wrist, right, you couldn't do what you're going to do. But what were you thinking when you went to go ride, knowing if you land on your wrist, you're done probably?
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. One is, what are you thinking about? Most professional athletes, it depends on the sport, but most professional athletes don't even know what it's like to feel 100%. You are always dealing with something, whether it's a nagging injury, an overuse injury, arthritis, or a broken bone, torn ligament, something like that you're recovering from. I don't think I was 100% healed for 10 years. Like there was always some sort of nagging something. Okay. But when you're asking a lot of your body, you work around it and you figure out ways to make it tolerable. Most athletes, again, depending on the sport, but most high level athletes have a really high pain tolerance and they can push through that pain. But you also get to know your body really well because it is your livelihood. So when you're pushing too far, or when you feel something, you've been warned that, hey, if you feel this, stop, right? You're really in tune with it, because if you misjudge or make a mistake with your body, like that's your livelihood.
Right.
And then for me, as far as the way I approached it with my wrist or any other injury, it was always calculated risk. Like what I did was very risky, but I was never just blindly throwing caution into the wind.
Right.
So it was like, okay, if I fall going 35 miles an hour on my wrist, even if my wrist is fine, it's probably going to hurt my wrist. Yeah. So really, I'm at the same level of risk that I was before. Maybe it's slightly up, but if I trust myself to not fall down on my wrist, and I broke my wrist one time in 12 years racing professionally. So, so looking at the odds, it's not like it's something that happened all the time. I trusted myself that I wasn't going to do that again. And I looked at the odds, and I looked at the situation, and I made the decision that I'll bank on the 98% versus the 2%. And that's how I really approached everything until it came to my head injury, in which case the risk was not worth the reward, right? Whereas riding with a broken wrist, worst case scenario, you break your wrist, but you can still live a normal life with a messed up wrist. But with that being said, too, one thing worth mentioning, I would not have done that for any other event. Anything but the Olympics, I would not have done it for. But when you're an Olympic athlete, you get one, maybe two, and like it is so rare for Olympic athletes to get 3 or 4 chances at it. You just never know. And so for me, at 2016, I was 23 years old. Like that is peak prime time age. Like that was my window.
Right.
And if it doesn't work out, that one, now I got to wait till I'm 27, a bit older. Right. So because it was what it was, I was willing to roll the dice. If it was just another event or national championships or something like that, I would not have done that.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you spent years, right, training and focused, and you had your goal and it was written on the wall. So now what is your focus now?
I have a few different focuses now. It's not like it was before, where it was like just one thing and only one thing and everything else is blocked out, right? Now I'm doing a number of different things, but I'm also trying to enjoy this period of my life where I've never been in this position before, where I'm not high stress all the time, where I'm not trying to win the Olympics, right? And I'm getting to have a glass of wine on a Tuesday night because I want to, right? I never could do that my whole life. Like everything I did, and I talk about this in my speech, when you're an Olympic athlete, you're never off the clock. Everything that you do counts. Everything you put in your body, every decision you make, how much sleep you get. If you're outside in the sun too long, like literally everything you do counts. And so now that I'm in a position where I can finally just be like, yeah, I'll do what I want when I want. That's kind of nice. So I'm enjoying that, but I do know, knowing myself, I need something to really dig into at some point. So I've given myself this year, 2023, but I've got a few different things I'm doing. I'm doing some speaking. I'll probably do 15 to 20 keynote speeches this year. So I'm really enjoying that. I've got a couple of signature products that I designed and I market and I sponsor some younger athletes. So I work with them. I coach and I teach classes all the way from beginners who are learning how to ride all the way to I'm coaching a couple of Olympic hopefuls who are trying to make the next Olympic team.
That's awesome.
As well as I'm getting into some broadcasting and commentating for some of the events and the races. So I'm doing a lot of different things and I'm really enjoying the variety versus the monotony of every day repeating the same process over and over and over again. Just enjoying that.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. So what is your usual audience when you're doing like your 15 to 20 keynote? Who's your audience?
Oh, it's really ranges. And so what I typically, get into, obviously there's always storytelling and I'm always sharing what I went through. But it's a lot of resilience-based stuff and, letting people in on behind the curtains of what it is like to try to reach sport's greatest prize and what you have to go through and the level of commitment that you have to have. And never give up is kind of cliche, but the level of never give up that you have to reach that. So that really applies to anyone. And I've spoken to high schools, to universities, to businesses, to mastermind groups, really wide variety. And it lands well with everybody, and everybody takes whatever they're kind of going through, whatever they're experiencing, they can apply the lessons and the concepts to their own life. And, that's one thing I think is really cool is how it's, my story is about me trying to win a bike race, right? But it works and it applies. The same thing applies to a business owner, to a salesperson, to somebody in a totally different world.
What is your one takeaway that you would want someone to walk away with when you do share your story?
It's hard to pick one.
Okay. Give me a few of them then.
So typically my keynote focuses on four things. So the first one is your goal, right? How do you know where you're headed if you don't outline that? You have to outline it. And when I say outline it, it has to be tangible and specific. It can't just be, I want to make more money. Okay, well, how much more money? I want to open a business. Okay, by when? You have to give yourself a tangible deadline or outline of what you're trying to achieve. And then from there, it's like, tell someone about it. Put it on your desk, put it on your fridge. Hold yourself accountable to try to reach that. And then you can have smaller goals along the way. So I really just talk about the importance of goal setting. And there's so many people walking around that don't know where they're going. Or they have a loose idea, but it's not defined.
Right.
But you show me anyone who's successful in anything, and I'll show you somebody who knew what they wanted and they had a plan to go get it. The next thing I talk about is overcoming failures. And again, show me anyone who's been successful. I'll show you somebody who has failed a lot.
Right.
And I guess the takeaway is like, it's okay to fail. And it's normal to fail. But you've got to overcome that. You've got to keep going. Don't quit. Overcome it. Keep going. The third one is learning from your mistakes. Right? Again, everybody's going to fail. Everybody's going to make mistakes. Learn from it. Figure out where you went wrong, what you could do better, and apply that, circling back to your goal. And then the last one is determination. And that's just how determined you have to be to reach a goal, right? And if you think about in business, there's a risk versus reward trade-off. That's what people are always talking about, right? It applies the same with a goal. If you set a small, easy goal, you're probably not going to have that much that comes up to make it difficult. But if you set a big goal, you're going to have some hard stuff that come up that you're going to have to overcome. And so that determination of how bad you want it really comes in handy then. And I don't know if you noticed, but those things, goal setting, overcoming failures, learning from your mistakes, and determination spells out gold.
I caught that. What would be the emotion you would want people to walk away with after hearing your story? Inspired.
I just want people to feel like, hey, I can do anything. If I really, truly commit to it and set my mind to it, I can do not anything, but within reason, I can do what I'm capable of and reach my full potential.
I like that.
Well, so for What's Your Story, first of all, and we kind of talked about this last week, but it's going to be an experience, I promise you, that you've never had before. It's not anything like you've done a keynote for before, and it's a family, it's a community, and there's magic that takes place every single year that we never know who it's going to happen with or what's going to happen. So we are excited to have you part of the family, and we can't wait to see what your experience is for, being there and just taking it all in. And so I'm honored that you're going to be a part of What's Your Story this year.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm excited. I'm excited as well.
So if somebody wants to reach out and have you come and speak with them or something, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, my website, just connorfields.com. And then I have an email. It's connor@connorfields.com. And that's with an O. People spell it with an E sometimes, but it's with an O.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us your time today to
Yes.
be on the podcast. We
Thank you.
appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you in October.
Thank you very much. See you then.
And thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.